Nearly 30 Jews were murdered in 2022 in Israel simply because they were Jews. The world was silent. This week, an Israeli minister in the Knesset visited the Temple Mount on a Jewish holy day, and the world flew into an outrage, even calling for an emergency meeting at the UN Security Council to address this situation. Are you noticing anything here? Yeah, perfect story to start off 2023. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of anti-Israel propaganda and Jew hatred, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Guys, it's 2023. We're here. We're starting off the year strong. You can help us out by subscribing and hitting that notification bell and getting things going down in the comment section on YouTube. And if you're listening, give us a follow or a subscribe, whatever platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening or watching. Give us a follow, give us a subscribe. Now's a great time to do it because it is January 5th, 2023, and we have so many plans to grow and reach more people than ever, produce more content. You guys are going to want to follow along on that journey. We're also going to try and grow our social media platforms this year. If you're on Facebook, we have more than 20,000 followers there, but we'd love to grow Twitter and Instagram as well. So head over to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you're on social media, and look us up at The Israel Guys and give us a follow. And if you want to help us grow, share these videos. Send them to friends, send them out in your emails, text messages, share them on social media, whatever it is, you can help us grow. Josh, start us off with we thought, January is downtime, slow time, but nope, not in Israel.
Leftists aren't going to let anybody get downtime. Luke, as everybody's already heard about the Temple Mount and the uproar that's being caused on that, and Jewish people visiting the Temple Mount is really just unacceptable in American terms. But there's also something else that Americans are not understanding right now as unacceptable. They'll use the term unacceptable when Jewish people walk on the Temple Mount. Just walk on the Temple Mount. But they will stand fully behind a Jewish farm being completely obliterated. Totally destroyed. Bulldozers come in and bulldoze a vineyard in the community of Yitzhar, a Jewish farmer that we know, just not so far from here. The civil administration on its last kind of push, hopefully before they're disbanded and a new situation goes on there. We don't know yet how that looks and what will happen there under Bezalel Smotrich, but we'll see. There's been renovations. But right now, they're still in power, and there's still a civil administration that is very leftist in its operations. For instance, this story right here. Just on Monday morning, our great friends at Regavim announced to the world, guys, look what's happening here. The civil administration under the Israeli Defense Force it's a military-run operation. It holds Jewish people accountable to the law, which we appreciate that, and we say that that's very good. If there's a problem, Jews are always held to the letter of the law by the state of Israel. The problem is that just across, there's a vineyard that's being destroyed in Area C. Area C, Jewish state land. A vineyard is destroyed. We're talking about something very good and nice and beautiful and helps everyone. A vineyard is planted, the vines grow, it produces grapes, which turn into beautiful wine that the world benefits from, and these wines are winning world-renowned awards everywhere, okay? Now, on the other side, 300 meters from this vineyard is a mosque. Just a regular mosque, and it's sitting there now for 15 years on Israeli state land, with a demolition order. 15 years. This mosque has stood there with its demolition order, and nothing has been done to it. So, let you know, why is this happening? Well, the civil administration wants to impress the government of the U.S. government, and particularly, I believe, right now, because the same day that Ben Gvir goes up on the Temple Mount and this uproar is going on, they need to show that, hey, something else is happening, and so the civil administration is bulldozing a vineyard. Look, we're not so bad. We can bulldoze a vineyard, but also the same day, guess what else happens? Guess what else happens, Luke? The same day, they go to say that we want to legalize Homesh. We want to legalize. This is all the same.
Josh, I want to
week.
make it clear for people what's happening here. Because you might say, what's wrong with the mosque? It's a house of worship, right? Nothing wrong with the mosque, right?
Jews would definitely not be allowed to go
What's
there.
wrong with a vineyard, okay, in the land of Israel? What's the difference here, okay? To be clear, both of these places were in Area C of Judea and Samaria. Oslo Accords, Area A, specifically for the Palestinian Authority, civil and security control. Area B, for PA, civil control, Israeli security control. Area C, mostly Israeli state land, primarily for Jewish settlement, okay? This mosque and this vineyard were both in Area C. The vineyard was not on private Arab land, was not on Palestinian land, it wasn't in Area B, it wasn't in Area A, it's in Area C, Israeli state land. This mosque was also illegally built on Israeli state land, Area C. What does Regavim's report say? Quote, the vineyard was uprooted following a petition submitted by Palestinian Arabs to Israel's High Court of Justice, despite the fact that no Arab ownership of the land in which the vineyard was planted some 4 years ago has ever been proven. The Jewish owners of the vineyard received a disruptive land use order. This unique military order allows removal of agriculture, even when no conflicting claim of ownership is submitted or proven, and is used by the civil administration exclusively against Jews. Only 300 meters away from the uprooted orchard in Area C on the outskirts of the Arab town of Borin stands an illegal mosque for which the civil administration issued a demolition order over 15 years ago. The Regavim movement appealed to the High Court of Justice to force the civil administration to enforce the demolition order, and the government gave its solemn commitment to uphold the law, but the illegal mosque stands undisturbed to this very day, and dozens of additional illegal structures have been built around it in the interim. What's the problem? You might say, okay, but if a vineyard's going to be, we need to have equal upholding. What's the problem? A vineyard, like you were mentioning, brings good to the land. It brings agriculture, brings the land back to life. It's bringing wine to the economy. No, there's no problem with a mosque in an Arab village, but where are they building it? They're building it as close as possible to this vineyard and also to the Israeli community of Yitzhar. And as soon as they build a mosque, then they build other illegal Arab structures, and eventually it turns into a town. This town is so close to the Jewish community and the Jewish people living that it becomes a security threat, and then we have terrorists coming and killing Jews. This is what's happening. And, by the way, it's sitting illegally on Israeli state land on Area C, not the areas that the Oslo Accords gave to the Palestinian Authority to settle, but the areas that the Oslo Accords gave to Israel to settle.
Luke, you know what I'm longing for? I'm longing for a day when Jewish people have rights as Jewish people. Even in Israel, Jewish people don't have rights more than their non-Jewish neighbors. This is, I just want to let the world know that.
Yeah.
Jewish people living in Israel today, they spent 2,000 years being harassed and persecuted and harmed, and now there's a Jewish state of Israel. And you would expect that in the Jewish state of Israel, Jewish people would have rights, more so than non-Jews. It's just like, as an American, I have more rights in America than non-American citizens. That should be the way it is. You live in a country, you have more rights in your country than people that are not citizens of your country. But unfortunately, that's not the way it is inside of Judea and Samaria. Jewish people living inside Judea and Samaria, even outside in Jerusalem as well, have less rights than their neighbors who are not citizens of the state of Israel. For this example directly, you're a Jewish farmer and you plant a vineyard, your farm will be destroyed because you didn't get the proper rights to do so, even though those rights to do so would never be granted to you. So that's why a farmer can't do that. There's not a process for that. So genuinely, he has to just plant. If he wants to build his farm, he plants and hopes for the best. On the other hand, his neighbors that are illegal squatters from other countries that have all just come here and squatted and are taking over his land that he would potentially farm on, they're the ones that are protected somehow by international law, so-called, and the international bodies like the UN that are going to battle now on behalf of this indigenous so-called people that have, are struggling for their existence. Well, that's just absolutely wrong, false, and backwards. The real fact is Jewish people in the state of Israel, in the nation of Israel, just quick, Judea, Samaria, Jerusalem are a part of the state of Israel. If you don't know that, that's true. They're a part of the state of Israel. Yet Jews living inside this area have no rights. This is a big problem, and the civil administration is not addressing it. And this is one reason why we believe, and we're hoping, that this body will be transformed, and there'll be a new setup under Bezalel Smotrich. And things like unequal claiming of laws, right? The laws are not being applied equally to citizens and non-citizens of this area, much less the law should be applied to the citizens, and much more so to people that are not citizens. But it's backwards. It's the other way around right now. The non-citizens, no law applies. They can build in Area C, Israeli state lands. They can build mosque. They can build permanent structures in areas that are illegal to build, but yet a Jewish person plants a vine in the ground and they'll be uprooted and destroyed. This is the balance that's completely off, but yet America and the world, the UN and everyone else is saying the big problem is the Jew, not the illegal squatter who is stealing state land. This is completely backwards, and you're seeing a total just mess on the world stage, and it's obvious that it's just anti-Israel rhetoric that's being brought to us on the world stage, and America is at the lead of that, right along with the UN. I think it's no coincidence, Luke, that on the same day that this vineyard is destroyed, the government, the new government, is reeling. They're like, what do we, because this is a conservative, right-wing conservative government, and they say, we will establish the community of Homesh, legalize.
So people understand the new government is not the one that's destroying this vineyard or choosing not to destroy the illegal mosque. It's the civil administration backed by the Supreme Court in Israel, which, by the way, we'll have to do a different show. They're trying to reform the justice system in Israel right now, and they have some really good things in the works because there's an unequal. They don't have checks and balances here like we do in the U.S. It's very unequal. The Supreme Court can pretty much overturn whatever they want. And the civil administration is a liberal organization that carries out a lot of things in Judea and Samaria without input or permission from the rest of the government.
So if you'd like to stop seeing Jewish farmers be destroyed and their farms being annihilated and Arabs building mosque in Israeli state land, there's two things that are happening that are good with this government. One is there's a new reform going on in the highest levels of government, right? The Supreme Court. The other is there's a renovation happening in the civil administration.
Well, number one, the justice minister is trying to create reforms so that the Supreme Court does not have as much power as they do currently, which right now they can pretty much just overturn anything.
Yeah.
And two, that potentially the civil administration might just be going away. And the way because the civil administration replaces the application of sovereign law in Judea and Samaria because Judea and Samaria is not under sovereign law, which is how the rest of Israel is governed. It's like military law.
Yeah. So these two things, Luke, to be clear, this is good news.
Hopefully
these two leftist arms
go through. Yeah.
Yep. Two leftist arms.
We have to talk about Homesh because when Israel pulled out of the Gaza Strip in 2005, there's 4 Jewish communities in Samaria, northern Samaria, that were also evacuated as a part of that whole project. One of them was Homesh. And since then, off and on, there's been a yeshiva there. What's been happening? They're basically studying the Bible, okay? But it's a point of contention, and the U.S. State Department even came out this week condemning this yeshiva in Homesh.
Yeah. Luke, what I'd like to say is that the U.S. State Department, I just want people to understand, just get a backdrop here. The U.S. State Department is so nitpicky and so anti-Semitic, so much Jew-hating, that a little hilltop with, we'll show a picture, 12 Jewish students studying the Bible in a shack is being brought up as like one of the main
topics. At the
topics.
U.S. State Department. I want to read Ned Price's statement, spokesman for the State Department. He said, quote, "Our call to refrain from unilateral steps certainly includes any decision to create a new settlement, to legalize outposts, or allowing buildings of any kind deep in the West Bank adjacent Palestinian communities or on private Palestinian land." Now, he did specifically bring up the yeshiva, Homesh yeshiva, and what is he saying? We don't want Israel to build any new settlements. Now, obviously, we don't agree with that, but I can understand if it's a little bit understandable, right? But he goes further. He says, or they're not allowed to legalize any outposts, specifically referring to this yeshiva in Homesh. And then he goes even further and he says, or allowing buildings of any kind deep in the West Bank adjacent Palestinian communities or on private Palestinian land. Now, number one, 99.9% of the time, nobody's building on private Palestinian land. Okay, it's just there's so much. Judea and Samaria has tons of state land, Jewish land. There's no need for it. Okay, that's number one. Number two, they're saying we're against anyone living or building in Judea and Samaria, or the Jewish people. We're against Jews building or living in Jews, meaning where we're sitting right now, the Jewish community of Har Bracha, they're not allowed to build a shed. They're not allowed to add an addition onto their house. They're not allowed to expand the community.
How about plant a few vines outside their house?
500,000 people living in Judea and Samaria, the U.S. State Department is against them living here. Right. 500,000, Israel has 9 million citizens. 500,000 of those citizens, U.S. State Department doesn't like them living here.
Disregard.
Not including the 300,000 more that live in East Jerusalem, which they're also against.
Which I want to say as well, Luke, when the State Department sides against Israel, the ally, and sides with members of the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, because even as much as maybe even Ned Price himself would say the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade is not good, he actually is siding with them and their desire for and fight for their homeland, so-called, right? Because the Fatah, the terror group, Al-Aqsa Martyr Brigade, in 2007, because the Homesh was pulled out when Gaza was pulled out, and the same timing, right? A lot of people don't understand that. The same was with the Gush Katif pullout. The same happened in northern Shomron. So when this pullout happened, later, just afterwards, in 2007, the Al-Aqsa Martyr Brigade said this. They made a statement about Jews that were attempting to return to Homesh. They said they will find themselves against armed resistance, fire, and attacks. We will not let this entrance go by quietly, and just as before, we will make every effort to liberate our land all over again. So Ned Price, in his attempts to keep Jews from settling in Judea and Samaria, and Jerusalem for that matter, he's siding with hostile Arab regimes against Jews and saying that Jews should not live here. These terror organizations should be in charge over these areas. Israel should not be in charge of these areas like Homesh. Instead, we should let these terror factions that want to kill Jews and burn Jewish farms and destroy Jewish life, we should let them. How weak is that? And what kind of ally is that?
Just want to make it clear again. Homesh is the yeshiva. Jewish men study the Bible at Homesh. A year ago, Yehuda Dementman was murdered, leaving Homesh, leaving a Bible study. A young man, young wife, young baby was just assassinated by Arab jihadist extremists. This is what the U.S. State Department has chosen to come against. They don't care about Jews being murdered in Israel. They care about 12 guys studying the Bible on a hilltop in Samaria, okay?
Right.
That goes right along with, I know Justin covered this topic very well on the Israel Guys this week, but we have to mention the international, you could call it catastrophic reactions to Itamar Ben Gvir's visit to the Temple Mount. Itamar Ben Gvir just became Israel's new internal public security minister this week last week with the new Knesset that has now been sworn in, which is very good news, by the way. A strong right-wing government has now been sworn into the Knesset, and we can expect really good things to come out of this. No, don't believe what you hear on the media, because they will not say that. They will not say what I just said. But anyways, the new public security minister, Itamar Ben Gvir, visited the Temple Mount on a Jewish holy day. Okay? You would think that it would be normal for Jews to visit the holiest site in Judaism on a Jewish holy day. Don't you think that would make sense?
Why not?
But instead, the world flew into an outrage all the way to China. And the UAE actually asking the UN Security Council to convene an international meeting to discuss this provocation. Now, we're recording this, obviously, on the January 5th. If this meeting comes out and there's breaking news, we'll be sure to let you know. Just follow us on our social media and YouTube. But I just want to mention, we have reactions from Jordan. They said, quote, or they denounced Ben Gvir in, quote, the severest terms for the storming of the Al-Aqsa Mosque in violation of its sanctity. Jordan's reaction said, quote, the Al-Aqsa Mosque is a red line and all the Jordanians are prepared to give up their lives for Palestine. That's not true, by the way. They don't care. They could care less.
No. Luke, this next part is what is disturbing. The member of parliament, this is not just a nobody speaking here. A Jordanian member of parliament states this. He says, we warn Netanyahu and his extremist government, and they changed Ben Gvir's name here to, I guess, an Arab word that means lowly one, Ben Gvir. So another just disturbing thing they're doing. He says, to continue, we warn Netanyahu and his extremist government and the Ben click here. The sons of pigs and monkeys should know that the response of the Jordanian people and the Palestinian people may now be in words, but these words represent a volcano that is about to burst because very soon the response will be with gunfire with the help of God. That's what the members of parliament are saying in Jordan.
Jordan's technically at peace with Israel.
And
so this is kind of shocking for him.
Yeah, and you didn't hear about that yet. Nobody's hearing about that. And there's no immediate UN peace thing. Like, that should mean big problems, guys. That means Jordan is not so secure in its so-called peace relationship with Israel. If they have members of parliament going on this, we're going to destroy Israel? That doesn't sound very peaceful. But yet the UN is not so concerned with these kind of rhetoric because they don't really care about Israel and the survival of the Jewish people. That's the fact.
There's also negative repercussions from Egypt. And then, worst of all, the U.S. From Thomas Nides, U.S. ambassador to Israel, he said, quote, has been very clear in conversations with the Israeli government on the issue of preserving the status quo in Jerusalem's holy sites and that actions that prevent that are unacceptable. And State Department spokesman Ned Price, quote, the United States stands firmly for preservation of the historic status quo with respect to the holy sites in Jerusalem. We oppose any unilateral actions that undercut the historic status quo. They are unacceptable. So both of them, Nides and Price, said basically Ben Gvir visiting the Temple Mount is unacceptable. Now, we don't have time to get into the status quo, but let's be clear, Ben Gvir was not violating the status quo. He wasn't violating the rights of Muslims. He wasn't storming the Al-Aqsa Mosque. He wasn't violating any Muslim holy sites. He was visiting the holiest site in Judaism on a Jewish holy day by simply walking around the site and making a statement that Israel will not bow to pressure from Hamas, will not bow to pressure from their enemies, and that this is their capital, and it is the holiest site in Judaism, and that Israel will not give that place up, okay? I just want to bring a couple things out. Nearly 30 Jews were murdered in 2022 by Arab jihadist extremists in the land of Israel. 100% of them were murdered in cold blood simply because they were Jews living in Israel. How many countries condemned this?
None.
You know what? I didn't look it up, but there's none. No countries condemned the killing of Jews in Judea and Samaria, Jews living in Israel. Did the UN condemn the killing of Jews in Israel? Nope. But how many resolutions did the UN pass instead against Israel? If you look at the list of world countries that violate human rights around the world, many of them, you can look at how many resolutions. The UN passed 0 resolutions against many of these countries. At the most, they maybe passed 1. If you think about countries that commit actual human rights violations, the UN passed either 1 or 0 resolutions against them. You know how many they've passed against Israel? I think in 2022 alone, it was something like 15. There's like a joke. A joke that it's only 10 in the morning and the UN hasn't condemned Israel yet for the day. Are you seeing a pattern here? 30 Jews are murdered in cold blood in the land of Israel, and the world stays silent, and the world does not rise up to condemn it. But as soon as a Jewish minister of the Knesset walks around the Temple Mount, the world flies into an outrage. Where's the truth? Josh, I know we have to wrap up, but I love a little bit of good news, and there is good news this year, and also an encouragement for you to come to the land of Israel. And that's 2.67 million tourists visited Israel in 2022, which is amazing when you think about the fact that Israel was closed. Their borders were closed until March, and then when their borders opened up, it took several months for tour agencies to get going again, for the bus companies to get running, for hotels to get running, for flights to get running to Israel. Last year, 2.67 million foreign tourists visited Israel, compared to 397,000 in 2021 and 831,000 in 2020, which obviously is because of COVID pandemic. 2022 numbers were 40% lower than Israel's record-breaking year of 2019. But like I mentioned, Israel's really, almost 3 million tourists is probably mostly in the second half of 2022. So that's good news. And the bottom line is that Israel's open. Israel's borders are open. And here at the Israel Guys, we want to encourage you, come to Israel in 2023. It's not too late to make plans. And if you want to come with us, come with the Israel Guys, come with Hayovel, our volunteer organization here. We have tours that focus specifically on Israel's heartland, and we have volunteer programs, planting trees, harvesting grapes, pruning vines. That's actually a men's trip that's coming up in February, and there's still time to register. fathers and sons. Great time to come. So just go to serveisrael.com and check out all of our programs and trips that we have planned for 2023 and 2024 if you would like to plan way ahead. But guys, now's the time to come to Israel. Make your mark. Visit the Holy Land. It's an experience of a lifetime, and you can show your support for Israel and go back as a personal, up-close ambassador for the nation of Israel. Guys, we need your help more than ever. The U.S., the United Nations, so many other countries, they're just ramping up their hatred for Israel and the Jewish people, and it's not going to stop anytime soon, especially with the current U.S. administration. I think more and more of these countries are aligning themselves with the haters of God, haters of Israel, haters of the Bible, haters of the Jewish people. So as we go into 2023, we, as supporters of Israel, believers in the Bible, Christians, we should only grow stronger in our support for God's kingdom, the Jewish people, and the land of Israel. And if you want to join us in our battle, fighting for the Jewish people's rights to live in the land of Israel, fighting for the restoration of God's kingdom, you can subscribe. You can hit that notification bell. You can let us know that you're standing with us and standing with the Jewish people in 2023. Down in the comments below, we would love to have you on this journey with us. We're so honored that you are here. Guys, remember to tune out the fake news and tune in what is actually happening here in the land of Israel. We'll be back every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with your direct connection to the land and people of Israel.